Welcome to the November webcast, Family Engagement Leads to Stronger Clubs. I am excited to be with you here today at our second to last webcast of 2022. Cannot believe that this year has flown right by. And today we're going to have a really engaging conversation and take a deep dive into how to engage family in the work that your youth clubs are doing. And today we're joined by a very special guest, World Federation of Youth Clubs' very own Jose Cruz, who is going to share everything that you need to know and think through when it comes to engaging families and building the strength of your club. I'm Abby LeMay, Vice President of Global Impact Initiatives, and I just want to walk us through a couple of brief housekeeping items before we get started. So of course, today's agenda is all about family engagement. Please feel free to ask questions along the way. We do ask you to use the chat box. Please keep yourself on mute until we say otherwise. But today is all about learning. It's about engaging with each other. It's about asking questions. So there will be plenty of time for questions and answers. And before we get started, just a couple of quick notes. As always, we are recording this session and we encourage you to share it with your youth clubs and with your peers after the session ends. We will email that out to you. Please remain on mute until we get to the question and answer portion, but use the chat. You can start using the chat now to introduce yourself. Let us know where you're tuning in from. You may notice that live transcription is available in English at the bottom of your screen today. And the best view to follow along is to click on View, then Speaker View, or side-by-side Speaker View. But of course, it is up to you how you'd like to tune in. So please take a moment and introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know your name, where you're tuning in from today, and answer this question. How does your organization engage families of youth that you serve? Maybe it's sending a letter out to families. Maybe it's inviting them to meetings or classes or special programming. But share whatever it is you do, whether it's formal or informal. Thanks everyone for joining us. We've got Ron here from Boys and Girls Club out in the Washington area. Tim is joining us from Atlanta. Of course, Tony and I are here in the Orlando, Florida office. Please continue to introduce yourself in the chat and answer the question, how does your organization engage the families of youth that you serve? I see lots of introductions in the chat, but not too many folks are answering the question. So for the sake of time, we're going to move on, but please continue as we go along in our conversation today to share examples of how you work with families. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jose Cruz to introduce himself and our topic today. Jose, you're on mute.
I just put it on mute in the last second. I'm sorry. Well, good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's having a great day. Buenos días a todos los que hablan español que están acá visitándonos. Si tu parles français, c'est présentation, bonjour. I want to thank you for allowing me to be here with you. Some of you may know me already from the work that I've done at Boys and Girls Clubs and all that, but family engagement leads to stronger clubs. Notice it doesn't say may lead to stronger clubs. It leads to stronger clubs. So we just want to start off with that. For me, family is everything. Family means the world to me, and it's the basis of who we are many times. here you have my beautiful family, very talented. They've backed me up in a lot of things that we've done for the World Federation and other projects. And for many people, that's what it is, family. And I think that for our clubs, it is important to understand that families come in all shapes and sizes, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Cruz. I'm a senior executive at Catalyst Family, and I'm also an advisor for the World Federation of Youth Clubs. And let me tell you a little bit more about myself. So as senior executive at Catalyst Family, it's an organization that runs throughout Southern California. We have about 150 centers. Pre-pandemic, we were serving about 15,000 kids. And through the pandemic, we lost about 65% of our membership. In the last few months, we've actually brought back, and we're over 60% now. And the idea behind it is that we could only do that engaging families. And so that's just a little bit on that. As an advisor for the World Federation of Youth Clubs, it's important to note that I've served many roles here, and whether I built the website for your site or whether we've provided help with writing a grant or doing anything like that. Every time we do something for you, it's all about finding solutions for your organization, and that's why I thought it was important to share on this topic. And then for some of you that know, I work for Boys and Girls Clubs of America and led the family engagement initiatives there. Over 2,000 clubs were implementing Family Plus that we called, and very successfully, many of them indicating that thanks to the family engagement programs, they were able to secure funding and were able to engage more kids than they had before. This meant that they got into different communities, were able to deal with more cultures, and understood the benefits of family engagement. So a little bit further behind me, I actually was going to be a doctor. That was my goal. Studied biochemistry, and I was ready to go into that. And then I fell in love with community support and working with teenagers. And for 32 years now, I've been working in the youth development arena. And a big chunk of that has been supporting families in that process. So I just wanted to give you that background so you don't think, well, Jose helped us with a website. Now what is he doing on family engagement? So let me give you some information so we can get started on the numbers, by the numbers. As a world, we currently have about 8 billion people. That's 8 billion with a big B. Out of that, we have about 2.5 billion youth. And out of that, we have about 2 billion families. Now, I'll give you a definition of what the Data World Bank considers families. They consider families those that are father, mother, and 2 children. We know that's not really what families are made up of, but that's just what the numbers are. So more than ever, the clubs are needed. You are needed more than ever. So what is a family? We see them in all colors, shapes, sizes. And I'd like you for a minute on the chat, tell me what a family means to you. What is a family? What defines a family? No longer are families father, mother, and children. What is a family? Give me some examples of what a family is to you, please. Anybody? All right. So family can mean, family is based on love for sure. Family could be a grandparent, family could be an uncle, aunt, family could be the neighbor. Families can consist of same-sex marriages nowadays. We have so many diverse families, and we don't know who's going to be the one that impacts that child or the one that's bringing that child into the club. So we kind of have to learn how to work with all kinds of families. So what is a family? A collection of individuals with genuine connection who provide unconditional support to one another. Wow, that is strong, Ron. That is very good. Next slide, please. So a family, and the importance of engaging families is this: they have a great impact on a child's life. And I think that goes without saying. I think every research, every book we read, it talks about family being an important initial start for a child. And so we're going to get into that a little bit more. So for a child, a family is the first source of information. That's where they get their initial learning. That's where children start learning concepts, even beliefs, behaviors. What other things do you think a family brings to a child besides, for example, care? That's their first. Family is the first one that brings them safety, a sense of protection, health. A family and or parent, mother, whoever is part of the family can observe if a child is sick, is getting, you can see the difference between a child. If a child is too quiet, all of a sudden, they're in trouble. There's different areas there. And affection. This is very important in child's beginnings. A hug. We know that in many organizations nowadays, hugging a child is questionable. So you have to use certain ways to hug a child. So family is the first route that can provide that hug to a child. Positive words. Just the same thing, telling them they're beautiful, little things that we don't usually say in clubs because of the different safety options. Safe relationships, and the difference between right and wrong. Those are things that we find that a family brings to a child. What are the things? Shared identity is one of the big things that you brought up. What are the things do you think are positives that a family brings to a child? If you can share on the text if you'd like. Stability, for sure. Definitely. Family is the most important bond that we can generate. That's definitely strong. Now, we have some challenges when it comes to families as well, and we have to be able to identify those. We find that information can also be wrong information, bad information, and we see it all over the place, including bad words. You see a child come into the club and starts cussing, and you're like, where did they find that from? Sure, it may be friends, but they replicate models of their parents, sometimes uncles, whatever. Negative beliefs. There are some things that may not be in line with what we all believe as a society, but a parent is the one that brings that. No knowledge. There are some parents that may not, or there are some families that may not provide the adequate knowledge for children. Care. There are some children that live in dangerous situations, and that doesn't mean communities where there's danger in the community. There are families that actually bring danger to the children. They can expose them to risks. And again, we're not talking about poverty or challenges in that sense, but just risks in general. Unhealthy relationships, whether it's smoking, drinking, that we know can have negative health effects, that could be a possibility. Abandonment. How many times have we not seen children walk into the clubs? Have you seen your parents? No, I haven't seen my dad in the last couple of days. That sense of abandonment. And affection, the negative affection, neglect. We have a lot of cases of children that they don't feel loved. Negative words. One of the examples that we use all the time is working with the kid at the club, empowering them, strengthening them, and then they go home and they start hearing how dumb they are. Unfortunately for some communities, giving them a negative nickname, and that stays with them for the rest of their lives. Unsafe relationships, we see that in a lot of our clubs, and negative behaviors. So you see where I'm going with this, the importance of the club in engaging families. You have both sides. You have the positive side where you can say, you know what, this family is doing everything right. Let me help their child to get even better. And then you have sometimes the situations where families can be actually a negative factor in a child's life, and the club is the one that has to help fix the situation. So the way we've worked and the way we work as human beings, and for those of you that have experience with Boys and Girls Clubs, will get this. We work on 4 senses, and that's for every child, that's for every human, regardless of your age. We work on 4 senses. And these 4 senses are very important because they can direct on how people behave, how people react, how people interact, and whether people participate. We all already know that children vote with their feet. If they like what we're doing, they will come to the club. If they don't like what we're doing, they will not come to the club. But then there's the families. So let's get a little bit into what the four senses are. So the first sense is the C, the big C, right? Feeling competent. Everybody wants to feel competent. The second one, for the club people, you'll see this and say, well, that's not the right one, right? It's L, right? Leadership. Leadership. People want to become leaders. They want to feel like they can lead something. Then the next one, the U. People want to feel useful. And we're going to dive into these. There's that sense of usefulness. I want to feel useful. And most importantly, in my mind, this is my big one, everybody needs a sense of belonging. Everybody wants to belong to something, regardless. Okay? So we'll dive into them one by one. So competence. We know that parents want to learn. At your club, we recommend that you offer programs for parents. Anything, offer programs that are going to have parents there. And these programs can definitely benefit the parents for their self-esteem. We had a story of a mom came to the United States from El Salvador, and she received a certificate for Parent of the Year for being the most helpful parent. We went and it was a big celebration. And when we got there, the mom received the certificate and she starts crying like tears. And we're thinking, wow, that's, what's going on? And she says, I brought my daughter to the United States and I knew that she was going to go to school. That was my goal. And she was going to go to school. She's going to get her high school degree and hopefully go to college. She says, I didn't expect anything more from me. It took a 10-cent certificate for this lady to feel like she had learned something more. And her life changed just on that certificate. 10 cents, that's all it cost. We also want to seek talents from the parents. Many parents have unique talents. You never know. There's been situations where we have professional dancers as parents, and they could run your dance class at your club. We have parents that are doctors. We've had parents where, the club is out there seeking help to have a dental clinic at the club, and here are the parents sitting around saying, well, how can I help? But no one ever approaches them. So seeking the talents from parents can be very, very important. We want you to immerse parents into the club. That means understanding their work. Understanding what they do and who they are can lead to greater help in your club. Them feeling that they're giving back to the club because they feel that sense of competence. They feel like they're doing something beyond their job. At their job, they may be really good, but now they bring it to the club. Now they feel like they're doing something that's of more value. And the other thing is we ask that you train your parents to support you. We cannot expect our parents to come into the club and automatically know what you do because it's different. It's a different environment. By doing this, by training parents to support you, it means that if they see their child running around, they're not going to grab their child by the arm and try to correct them. Now they know it's part of a process, and they can do different things, help you schedule the events. They can help you collect data, even organize parent meetings, simple things. That makes them feel like they're competent, like they're doing something to give back. Leadership. I know this leadership usually in the clubs, they use it as influence. They call it influence, but we've changed it to leadership. Because parents appreciate a sense of responsibility. They want to feel like the organization that's taking care of their child, their most precious being, can actually get something back from them. So one of the things that we recommend when trying to establish leadership with parents is to establish parent committees. Every club, every organization should have parent committees. These committees don't tell you what to do. They simply come up with solutions to some of the things that you may find challenging. You're having an event and you don't have anybody to do cleanup. You have a committee that gets together and puts together responsibilities for each other. And that's very important. And you'll see who takes the leadership in those roles, but you can also rotate the leadership so it doesn't seem like you're putting all the work on one person. Advocacy. You do not know who your parents work for, and therefore you can miss a lot of opportunities. I was sitting in a meeting one time at a parent committee in Houston, Texas, and the club had just received an opportunity to have soccer programs. And these soccer programs, simple, Houston, Texas, a lot of Latinos, we thought soccer programs are going to work. They forgot about the distance between the locations and the clubs. And when they wanted to play soccer, they really couldn't go to the game. They just didn't have a way to transport every child. Well, we're sitting in a meeting and a lady, a grandmother, stands up and says, I will take every child. There were giggles. Actually, people were laughing a little bit because, the superintendent of schools is there, business owners, and they don't know this lady because they've never really had the opportunity to know who she is. And she says, well, I'll tell you how I'm going to take them. My husband and I started the first charter bus company that would take people from the border of Texas all the way into San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas. And so we will have a charter bus outside every day that there's a game. And we commit to that for the next year. Simple questions to ask them. What do you do? Where do you work? What is it that you do as a business? If you're a business owner, that makes them feel like they can advocate for you. They can actually, if they're in a meeting or anything like that, the first thing they're going to think about is the place that takes care of their children, especially if you're doing it right. So remember, advocacy, that includes them being connected to their friends, their family, the community. Anytime you have an event, go to your parents. They're the ones that are going to bring the people in. If you try to put a flyer in a child's backpack, that flyer is going to disappear. But if you go to the parents will get that message out. We do ask that in order to create that leadership sense, that you create an agreement, and we recommend a written agreement. This agreement basically puts them in a position of responsibility. I know I have to be here on these days. I know these are the things that I have to deliver. I know this is what I'm responsible for. The agreement also makes it easier for you if a parent is not working out or if parents are not working out, for you to say, okay, we're done with this project. We can break the agreement. So it reduces challenges and it reduces stress on both the parents and the organization. So think about those agreements. And it doesn't have to be too formal. It could be very simple written agreement that you have in writing. Recommendation is in writing. The other thing that's very important in the leadership concept is professionalism. You have to keep it professional. Just because there's a parent that you get along with really well, you have to remember, you don't talk about other parents with the parent. You have to create a sense of trust, and that trust is earned. And you have to make sure that that professionalism reflects the commitment to the clubs from all the parents. Every parent should be treated as a professional, like you would treat a business partner, like you would treat anybody. And this also creates that barrier so that they understand that their children and your care, it's under your care. And when they go home, they're the parents and they take care of them again. So leadership, creating leadership amongst parents gives them that sense of taking responsibility for doing more for your club. Next. Usefulness. Now, one of the things that we learned with usefulness is that parents want to pay you back for what you do for their children. And they want to feel useful. They want to make sure that they somehow pay you back. And I know that many clubs don't charge a fee to be members, or there's a minimal fee that's a symbolic, which we always recommend, that symbolic minimal fee. But the usefulness part comes even further. And we ask that you get to know your parents, as I've said from the last two slides, because you never know who you have on your club. Maybe you need a repair at your building because something cracked, something broke. And one of the parents is a construction worker. That would take no more than 10 minutes to put it together and get it done. Maybe your funds are low and you don't have the funding to hire somebody. So you let things go and they become worse. Parents could be the ones that can help you on that. You want to make sure that you make them part of the team. And what that means is that with the advisory committees, with making sure that they participate in events with you, whether they're chaperones, whether they're helping you fix things, whether they're helping you even just clean the basic things. Making them part of the team also gives them that sense of usefulness. We did a little bit of research. We did a questionnaire. We invited parents to be part of a conversation about this. And one of the things that happened is that we asked parents, how come you guys don't get involved a little more? They were struggling to get parents into these committees. And the parents simply said, well, we don't get invited. We really don't know how to get involved. And so solution was very simple. One, personal invitation. We recommend that you go out and you shake every parent's hand when you have a chance. Ask them their names. I'm terrible at names, so I will not remember your name the first time. But go back to them and say, hey, Miss, and if you forget, ask the child. The child will tell, hey, what's your mom's name? And they'll tell you the name. Parents want that sense of responsibility. And the advantage of that is, if you ever want to have an event and you don't have the resources to buy the food, to get whatever you need to put together, parents will pitch in. We found that parents don't want to get fed all the time. If you want to have a parent night, you don't need to buy them food all the time. What they enjoy more than anything is a potluck. They want to bring in their own food. They want to make sure that they share with you. They want to make sure that you know that they also have something to give back to you because everything you're doing for them. So who can help you with what? Identifying the parents and the way they can help you is very important. And it's not bad to have a little list of names and say, well, this parent does this parent does that, this parent is associated with this, and that way you have that sense of responsibility placed on them. And we have found that this also brings positive behaviors, not only in the children, but in the parents. There have been many cases where a child regularly misbehaves at the club. They're seeking attention, maybe, or there's other challenges. And when the parents start getting engaged, well, once if the child sees that parent at the club on a regular basis, well, kind of don't want to act up because they don't know what's going to happen at home. So they try to be careful. But the other thing is, you now have both an understanding of why that child is misbehaving or why that child is acting up. And it could be something as simple as they're not having the attention, or it could be something more complicated or more complex that the parent and the club can try to find professional help for, if that's the case. We've also found that parents that were not having very good positive behaviors, when they got involved with the clubs, their behaviors began to change because now there were certain expectations set on those parents that probably were not there before. And now that they see the work that the clubs are doing, the commitment that you have, and the extra effort that you go to help their kids, now all of a sudden they feel a sense of, I need to do better for my child as well. So it helps both sides by doing the right thing. So now we get into the sense of belonging. And we all have that sense of belonging. I worked for Boys and Girls Clubs of America for a number of years. And I can tell you that I visited just about every club in the United States I can think of. And with the World Federation, I've been fortunate enough to not only help bring a lot of clubs into the organization, but also have visited the clubs. And one of the things that you ask anybody that has worked or has been part of Boys and Girls Clubs is that they'll tell you that they bleed blue, right? They bleed blue. There's that sense of, I belong to that, and we're proud to wear the logo. So one of the things that we found with finding that sense of belonging is that it's also good for mental health. We found that anytime somebody feels like they belong to something, they have a social life, the home challenges are reduced because now they have other sense of responsibilities, they have new focuses, they become more positive. So there's a mental health benefit to being part of something. And children will tell you, when they grew up, I grew up in the Boys and Girls Club, and I'll tell you, those were some of my best memories. That's when I got to share with my cousin, that's when I got to share with my brother, and that's when I made some friends that I'm still connected to today. There's an exposure to opportunities as well. We have situations around the world right now with economics and political situations and everything. And we find that when parents come together in a similar setting, they are more likely to share some of the opportunities that perhaps their company has. There's also opportunities that you may have at your club. I need volunteers. I need staff. You know what? We have an event, but who's going to help us? We don't have enough staff. Here's the opportunity. You give parents a t-shirt that says the club name and a nice color, and all of a sudden they're part of you and they're cheering you on. You want to go plant trees? The parents will be right there with you. You want to go clean up a community? The parents will be right there with you. So that gets us into the volunteer and staff. We met a lady back in 2007 when I was running the programs for Boys and Girls Clubs of America. Her name was Lori. We brought in a lot of clubs that were implementing the family programs, and she told us a story. Lori was a victim of domestic abuse. She was a victim of domestic abuse. Finally, her husband or her partner was arrested for all the times that he was beating her up. He was hitting her a lot. She had 2 children, and they were suffering too. Well, when the last incident happened and the husband went to jail, she ended up in a homeless shelter. So she didn't have a house. She didn't have anywhere to live. And she was living in this homeless shelter. And the homeless shelter recommended the Boys and Girls Club as a place for her kids to go after school so she can do some work. And sure enough, she went and she kept applying for jobs. But as you can imagine, she went to a shelter. She had no clothing. She had nothing. She shared a picture of her when she went to the place. She had a sweatshirt, sweatpants, and tennis shoes. That's all she had with her. That's when she left her home. And so she went to the club, and every day she was there right on time, left right on time. And then one day she saw a posting for a job. They had a position there. She had studied accounting in the past, but she never got to practice it because she was married, and she was, again, was in a relationship that wasn't really good. So she went, talked to them, applied for the position, and you know what? They gave her an interview. Well, the day that they gave her an interview, it was the court date, and she didn't know. She got the court date afterwards, and she had to go there. The spouse was going to get released from jail, so she was terrified, and so she was late for an interview. When she went to the interview, she went to the club later. She apologized to the CEO and talked to him and said, you know what, this is what's going on. He said, you know what, let's talk for a few minutes, came in and gave her the interview. She got the job, and she was crying, and she was so thankful she got the job. Little did he know how much impact Lori was going to have in that club. Within 3 months, she was promoted twice. And 5 years later, she was a COO. She was a chief operating officer of that organization. She had more passion than anybody had ever had, because this was the first organization that gave her an opportunity. Her kids went through the clubs, and Lori's still doing amazing. And what happens is that a lot of times we don't see parents as staff because we see, oh, they're their parents. But once we get to know them, and once we see their commitment to the organization, you will see that those would be perhaps some of the strongest candidates you will ever find, because they, again, want to give back to you for all that you've done for their kids. So the idea here is that as an organization, one of the big things that you want to do is you want to create a culture. I told you that I'm working for this organization now called Catalyst Family. And one of the big things that we're focused on is our branding. And every organization should have that branding, because if people don't know what you're doing, if you don't have the pictures out there, if you don't have your colors out there, if you don't have your logo on a t-shirt, people don't know who you are. People don't know what you're doing. And by creating that positive culture, you will see that your parents are going to wear their t-shirts, are going to wear whatever you give them to represent your organization. And we've seen the positive effects that does. We've seen it here with the World Federation of Youth Clubs. Organizations like Botswana created a t-shirt. They sent t-shirts to the office here, and everybody was super excited to wear them. Boys and Girls Clubs of Central America, Boys and Girls Clubs of Mexico, different organizations, they have their logos everywhere. And that's creating a culture. It creates that sense of belonging. Now when you need the help, parents are going to be there because they identify your club with positive things that are happening for their kids and their families. Next. So we ask you, besides getting to know the parents, besides having conversations with the parents, finding out what they do, just getting to know their relationship, we ask you to find the value in every single parent. You know, the World Cup is coming up in a few days, and I don't know if you're a fan of soccer. I love soccer. You know, this World Cup is a little different because it's not in the summer, but in the soccer team, you have many different positions, right? You have the goalie that's going to be in the, you know, the goalkeeper that makes sure that no goals go into the goal. And then on the other end, you have the forwards that score all the goals, right? And throughout the team, you have 11 players that are doing all their things. And we always think that we have to have that star forward or that star keeper to make things happen. And we think that with parents. Oh, the parent that comes and volunteers for me, or the parent that talks to me, or the parent that's always there. And we forget that there are other people that are also very important. You know, the scorekeepers, the referees, the people that are outside looking in. And so sometimes the shyest parent, the parent that's over there in the corner, brings the kids every day on time, may be the one that could become your greatest advocate. The idea is that we have to get to know all the parents as much as possible for two main reasons. One, to support the great work that they're already doing with their kids. And the other main reason is to identify any challenges that kid may be going through that the family could be putting them through. So we have two jobs when it comes to engaging families, and we have two jobs when it comes to engaging, to helping our kids. And those are two very important tasks. So finding the value, one of the things that we ask is that when you're looking for the value, next, sorry, we are looking for advocates. Parents are going to be your strongest advocates. Remember that. As long as you do good by them. If you do something bad, or if you don't offer great programming, if you mistreat a kid, parents are also going to be the ones that are going to tell the community, this is not a good organization. I know you're all doing amazing work, and we have to continue doing that. So keeping parents on our positive side is the best thing you can do. That's going to be your biggest advocate. Next time you need donations from somebody, parents are the first ones to step up. Supporters, a little bit different than advocates. Supporters also means that there are many communities that you serve in, and I've been to many. I've been in Haiti, I've been in Central America, Colombia, different places where some of the communities are very challenging. And without these parents, you may not be able to enter those communities. Without the parents, you may not be able to speak to the different community leaders about how to implement programs in that community. So the kids that need you the most may not get the access because you don't have the support from parents. So remember those supporters. Donors. Many times we're looking for the big grant. We're looking for somebody to give us $10,000, $100,000, $1 million, because if we only had so much money, oh, we would change the world. We know that. Money is always the number one issue that comes up when we talk about challenges for organizations, nonprofits in general, youth development organizations especially, because we know the amount of work that you're doing for the kids. And we know that the money is never enough. But donors don't always come in the form of giving you money. Again, if you have an event and you need food or you need anything like that, parents will give whatever they have extra to make sure that your event helps raise money. They also can be the ones that, similar to advocates, they can tell their friends and family to donate. I'd rather have $1 million from 1 million people, $1 per person, than $1 million from one person. Because if you lose a few, you still have all these other advocates. So parents could be your number one initial individual donors. They can give you $1, they can give you $5, but they will support you. So initial donors would be great. And then the volunteers. I know everyone I've talked to, everyone I speak with, there's a challenge with having enough staff to do all the work that you do. And I see it. I speak with some of you on a weekly basis. Your parents can be your number one volunteers. Again, keeping it very professional and having a strong agreement. It's very important that you do that. If you don't do that, you're going to have communication challenges. You're going to have other issues that you need to be careful with. So professional and have an agreement. Next one. So one of the things that I said at the beginning was that there are great benefits to engaging parents. And I'm not saying that they may lead to something positive. They will lead to something positive because we've seen it. We've seen it all the time. And so these benefits may become very surprising to you once you start implementing some of these strategies. Every time I have seen clubs engage parents, I have never heard of them saying, oh man, it went sour. If they don't do it right, if they don't do it professionally, if they don't do an agreement, if they don't make it, if they don't have a plan, there could be challenges. But in general, you're going to have positive outcomes, not only for your organization and for the kids, but you will also see it with the parents and eventually the communities. So this is my presentation. I thank you all for being here. I try to be brief on things because I know you guys have so many webcasts, so many webinars, but please feel free to contact me. We can have further discussion on this. Most of you I work with directly already, so I already have conversations with you on a regular basis. But if I'm not one of your, if I'm not the, the director that helps you or the advisor that helps you, please email me. I have some of these resources. We can have conversations on how I can help you. And please, any questions that you have right now, I'm here to answer them.
Thanks so much, Jose. That was a fabulous presentation with lots of great takeaways and information. For anyone who has questions or topics you want to talk about, feel free to drop those in the chat or come off mute.
Jose, I have a quick question. Can you talk a little bit about how to navigate situations where families, maybe it's not the best home situation, or maybe the ethics in the home are in conflict with your own organizational culture and values? You want to serve the child so that you can expand kind of their understanding of perspective, but in order to do so, you also have to be responsible and careful about that dynamic with the parent. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, one very, very good question, Ron. So culturally, we have differences, right? In the United States, every person that works with young people becomes a mandated reporter. If we ever find something very negative, we're responsible for reporting it to the local authorities. So you're always supposed to have some kind of places that you can report negative situations. In other countries, we have similar cases, but in other countries, we really can't do much, right? One of the things that we found in the process of engaging parents is that when there's a very challenging situation, we try to invite parents to be part of things that are very supervised, that, give them a task, give them a responsibility, even if it doesn't seem like a lot, just to invite them in, to get to know them a little bit. We found parents that are going through alcoholism. We have parents that have gone through abuse, and that's their defense mechanism. Always prepared to say, if I see something wrong, report it. But the biggest story that I found one time was a child that was getting hit. He was getting bruised all the time and everything. And we didn't know how to handle that situation besides reporting it. That child one day, and that child was misbehaving all the time because that challenge was passed on to the child. So the child, as much as we wanted to help, that child kept misbehaving. So we started giving that child that confidence, right? More responsibilities, you're going to help us with that. And one day that child was seen picking up some chairs without being asked. He just went up, picked up some chairs, put them away. Right away, the leader at that club went to the phone and took the child with him. Now that child was used to getting in trouble. That child was always getting in trouble. So He already knew that somebody was going to call on the phone. It was going to get the mom there, and the mom was going to be upset, and he was probably going to get beat again. It took 10 seconds to call the mom and say, Mom, I just wanted to thank you for raising such an amazing child. Today, and we'll say Johnny helped us with the chairs, and he was so helpful, and he's doing really well. And just that positive call changed everything for that kid. And obviously, you may have to do it more than once, but by engaging both in the positivity, we found that that parent came back and thanked the club. They couldn't thank them enough because they were so surprised that their child would be doing something positive. And then that parent all of a sudden wanted to give back a little bit. Highlighting parents in a positive way is also good. The same way with that child that did something good, that one time a parent does something good, anything, that parent could come in and cuss you all the time, give you the wrong phone number because they don't want to deal with their child, give you the wrong email address. That one time you see that parent picking up that child on time, coming out and thanking them and saying, you know what, I'd like to make you parent of the week this week or parent of the month. Just, it's not going to take anything from the work you do. It's not going to change anything. Other parents are not going to get upset. They're going to see that parent, they're going to say, wow, that looks good. So the same concept of recognizing that child and recognizing that parent can begin the positive change. Now, I know that some require a lot more work. Some require deeper conversations, but this initial steps can lead to potentially creating a positive relationship with that family. Does that make sense, Ron? Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Pueden preguntar en español también, alguna pregunta.
Hola, yo quiero, estoy buscando cómo levantar la manito.
¿Qué
Hello,
pregunta
thanks.
tienen? Hola, Liris,
Ricardo,
¿cómo está?
Venezuela. Muchas gracias. Realmente,
Se fue a mudo, se puso muda. Ahí, otra vez regresó.
cierra ya que no, que me hace eco aquí, mi amor. Ok, que más que una pregunta, yo lo primero que quiero es agradecer al señor José Cruz y a la World Federation Adult Club por estos webcasts que nos facilitan herramientas para nosotros continuar con este trabajo. No sé
Nuestro
si...
placer, Liris, para eso estamos, para eso estamos.
Ok, y lo que quiero decir es que realmente empezamos pocas personas en el club y de aquí en Venezuela en el colegio, y justamente cuando queríamos postularnos para las Promise Awards, muchos de los familiares o representantes de los niños nos brindaron ayuda, y después de ser 4 o 5 personas trabajando para el club, ahora somos aproximadamente como 20 y todos quieren colaborar, todos hacen difusión de las actividades en el colegio, ya nos reconocen en la comunidad, y apenas a un año de habernos afiliado a la Federación Mundial de Clubes Juveniles, estamos creciendo con acciones muy sencillas, pero ya nos reconocen. Así que queríamos informar eso, de que esa participación de los familiares nos han apoyado mucho para el trabajo que queremos hacer, y para el 2023 nos escucharán muchísimo más.
Muchas gracias, Liris. Qué bueno. I'll translate for those that, I'll give you a brief of what she said. Basically, they've been around for about a year, and they're very thankful for everything that we do to support them. One of the things that they found is that when they started engaging parents, they only had 4 to 5 staff helping them do everything. They were doing everything, engaging families, doing everything. Well, the Promise Awards came and families started getting involved, and now they have about 20 people helping them do the work. And so that increased dramatically. So it's more than a question, a comment. And she just wants to say that in 2023, they're going to hear more from Venezuela. We're going to hear more from Venezuela. Gracias, Liris. Any other questions?
There's a question in the chat asking if you can recommend some topics for parents programming.
So some of the things that are addressed in parents programming usually have to start with dealing with their child, right? Some of the topics that have been very, very hard-hitting have been, bringing positivity at home. So recommendations on how to listen to your child or talk to your child. That is always very strong. That's always a very strong topic. On my end, I think that one of the very important topics that should be brought up is family empowerment or family strengthening. So having a positive mindset. So getting parents into a positive mindset about themselves too. I have the strong belief that you can't love anybody else unless you love yourself. And I think a lot of times with human beings and with parents, a lot of times their job is their child and they love their child more than anything, but they forget to worry about them. There's also health topics, not just mental health, but also physical health. When you start, if you have a program for parents where they're doing activities, those are always very strong, very powerful, whether it's dancing, whether it's Zumba, whether it's having walks around the club. I've seen clubs actually do while you wait programs. That's what they call them. And while you wait programs is the children are inside doing their programming and the parents are outside doing a walk, having conversations about other topics beyond just their kids. So there's a whole list, and I think I still have the guide that we created back in 2009. I think we created a guide that is still being used by many boys and girls clubs. I can email me and I will share some of the topics that were covered on that list. But again, anything that deals with their children and making sure it's better at home, anything that deals with their physical and mental well-being is very strong as topics. But one of the very strong ones too, as well, I forgot, is how to engage them in the club and how they can help more. So if you have events, activities, or anything like that, making them part of that process is also going to be a very strong topic for them to be part. They come up with the solutions. They know the communities better, and they're the ones that can make recommendations. Again, advisory groups, they advise you. They don't tell you what to do. They just give you advice on what they think would work. I hope that helps. I think that was Baja California Sur. Y me pueden llamar, pues también podemos hacer una plática cuando gusten.
Hola, soy Victoria de Baja California Sur. Muchas gracias.
De nada, a la orden.
Realmente me
Cuando
ayudó
podamos hacer
mucho.
una llamada.
Gracias, claro, con mucho gusto. Nos ayudaría demasiado. Tenemos algunos papás que son muy involucrados, pero la verdad es que otros no. Entonces nos ayudaría demasiado. Voy a contactarte por email para que podamos reunirnos.
Sí, ahí Raúl y todos ellos ya me conocen y siempre buscamos soluciones a cualquier situación.
Ah, qué bueno. Bueno, pues muchas gracias, mucho gusto en conocerle y gracias por la información.
De nada. Any other questions?
We are actually right at 12 o'clock today, so we're going to wrap up just a couple pieces of information, and then we will keep the Zoom room open for a few minutes. So if you do have any additional questions, Jose will be happy to answer them for you. So as we wrap up, Tony is going to share a couple of quick updates.
All right, folks. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. I'll keep this super brief because we are a couple of minutes over. A couple of things coming up next. As always, everybody that attended this webcast is going to get an email with a follow-up survey about this session. I highly encourage everybody to fill out that survey because we're trying to make the 2023 series as good as possible. That email is also going to have a recording of this whole session for you to share with your entire team. Our next webcast, our end of year youth celebration, is going to be our last webcast of 2022. That one's going to be on December 8th. And I really want to welcome everybody to submit some content for that one. I know that our deadline passed, but we are accepting content until tomorrow, and don't be shy, definitely submit. We're really just looking for some accomplishments or stories that your club may have had over the last year that you'd like to share. And if you have any questions regarding that, feel free to send an email to admin@wfyc.org, or you can email me directly at tgalveo@wfyc.org. And I won't hold you up any longer. So once again, thank you so much for joining and have a good rest of your week.
Thanks everyone for attending the November webcast. Look out for your follow-up email with all that information Tony shared, along with the link to submit your interest if you would like to be featured as a guest speaker at the December 8th webcast. We still have a couple of spots left, and we would love to fill those with some of the clubs who attended today. And with that, you are welcome to go on with your day, but we will keep the Zoom room open in case anybody has questions for Jose. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Gracias. Feliz tarde. Gracias.